Take a look at this. It's not a beehive or some man-made puzzle. This is the Giants Causeway on the coast of Northern Ireland. For centuries, it's been a source of wonder, a place where myth and geology collide. We're told these are the strange but natural remnants of an ancient volcano. But deep in the corners of the internet, a much wilder story is told. A theory that asks you to look closer. Does this really look like a random act of nature? What if the story we've been told is only part of the truth? What if these aren't rocks at all, but the petrified stumps of giant, crystalline trees that once towered miles into the sky? And what if the scariest part isn't that they existed, but that something cut them down? Section 1. The official story. A world forged in fire. Before we get into that incredible theory, we have to understand the story that's written in our geology textbooks. This is the official explanation, the scientific consensus for what you're seeing. Around 50 to 60 million years ago, the world was a pretty violent place. The tectonic plates that make up our planet's surface were shifting, pulling apart what would become Europe and North America. Here, in what would become Northern Ireland, the crust stretched thin, and massive fissures opened up, spewing unbelievable volumes of molten basalt across the land. According to geologists, this created a massive lava plateau. As a particularly thick layer of this molten rock began to cool, it contracted, creating immense tension. Physics dictates the most efficient way to relieve that stress. Cracks form at 120-degree angles. As the cooling continued, these cracks shot downwards, splitting the lava into tens of thousands of individual columns. This process is called columnar jointing. What we see today at the Giants Causeway, some 40,000 interlocking pillars, is the result of this process, later exposed by millions of years of erosion. This explanation is elegant and supported by evidence from all over the world. Similar formations exist at Fingal's Cave in Scotland, believed to be part of the same ancient lava flow, and most famously at Devil's Tower in Wyoming. In each case, science tells the same story: cooling magma, thermal stress, and geometric fractures. It's a clean, logical explanation for a bizarre natural wonder, and for most, that's where the story ends. But for some, this is precisely where the real story begins. The scientific explanation is solid, but it asks us to accept that a chaotic volcanic eruption could result in such breathtaking order. This is the pivot point for a completely different version of our planet's history, a fringe theory that proposes we are not looking at cooled lava, but at the petrified remains of a forest so vast it's hard to imagine. Proponents of this theory ask us to look at the world with new eyes. They put an aerial view of the Giants Causeway next to a microscopic cross-section of a plant stem, and the visual similarity is hard to deny. Both are composed of tightly packed hexagonal units. Physics explains that hexagons are an efficient shape for relieving stress, which is why they appear in cooling lava. But the theorists ask, is this just a coincidence of physics, or is it a biological signature? The argument is that we've been trained to see rock, so that's all we see. But what if the evidence is pointing to something far more profound? The theory suggests these aren't just any trees, but a form of life entirely alien to our modern world, a forest made of crystal. Section 3. The Silicon Blueprint. A debunked idea. To entertain this theory, you have to throw out our carbon-based assumptions about life. All life on Earth is carbon-based, but just below carbon on the periodic table is silicon. Science fiction has long imagined worlds with silicon-based life, and some theorists believe our world was once one of them. This is where the crystalline nature of the supposed trees becomes critical. Silicon's most common form on Earth is silica, the main component of quartz, which forms hexagonal crystals. The theory proposes that the ancient world was covered in giant silicon-based organisms that grew like crystals. The hexagonal pillars at the Giants Causeway, in this view, are the petrified vascular bundles of these beings. It's an amazing idea, But it runs into a big problem. The rocks at the Giants Causeway aren't made of silica or quartz. They are definitively basalt, a type of volcanic rock rich in minerals like pyroxene and feldspar. This isn't a case of wood turning to stone. The geology confirms the columns are igneous rock, formed from fire, not a forgotten biology. If a forest of such unbelievable scale existed, the Giants Causeway couldn't be the only remnant. So the theory goes global, reinterpreting other mysterious geological formations as more evidence. Let's look at Devil's Tower in Wyoming. For over a century, the official explanation has been that it is a laccolith, or volcanic plug, the hardened magma core of a volcano whose softer outer layers have eroded away. But to giant tree theorists, it's a perfectly preserved colossal tree stump. The problem with this idea is that geologists agree Devil's Tower is an igneous intrusion, and the surrounding area is full of other sedimentary rocks and geological features consistent with its volcanic origin. It is not an isolated object. The theory then turns to the flat-topped mesas of Monument Valley. The official story says these are formed by millions of years of erosion, where a hard layer of caprock protects the softer rock underneath. The giant tree theory asks a provocative question. Do they look like they were slowly carved by nature, or do they look like they were sawed off? This idea, however, ignores the clear geological evidence of sedimentary layers and differential erosion that is well documented in the area. This fringe theory expands to its most shocking claim. The world's mountains are not the result of tectonic uplift. They are the debris piles, the planetary sawdust, left behind by an ancient harvesting operation. And the Grand Canyon? Not carved by a river, but a quarry. This is where the theory leaves established science completely behind, moving into pure myth-making. This leads to the most unsettling question in this whole fantasy. If these giant trees were harvested, who or what did it? An operation of this magnitude would require technology far beyond anything in human history. Were they a forgotten terrestrial empire? Or were they extraterrestrials who came to Earth to exploit its unique biology? Was it for resources, or was it an act of terraforming to clear the way for carbon-based life like us? The theory offers no evidence, only speculation. It suggests the harvesters left behind a planetary crime scene, and we are simply living among the ruins, mistaking the evidence for the landscape. So let's return to the windswept coast of Northern Ireland and its 40,000 hexagonal pillars. What is the Giants Causeway? Is it a geological accident, the beautiful but random outcome of a volcano that erupted 60 million years ago? Science says yes. The evidence for its volcanic origin is overwhelming, a story written in stone and studied for hundreds of years. Or is it a tombstone for a forgotten world of crystalline giants? That story is whispered on the internet, a compelling piece of modern folklore. It's a narrative that captures the imagination, but it remains just that, a story. The rocks themselves tell a different tale, one of fire, pressure, and time. What do you think? Is it more fascinating to know the scientific truth of how our planet works, or to imagine the myths it inspires? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to explore more mysteries, both real and imagined, make sure to subscribe.